All
All
right.
right. We are live.
We are live once again, and this time we have a name for this beautiful podcast.
That's right.
The No Downside Podcast. Patent pending. We're running through a little
Patent
copyright
pending.
issues, but no. No Downside Podcast. What's going on?
I love it. I love it. How
Well,
you doing, Isak? What's going on, man?
um I'm pretty good. I've been sick as a dog the last couple of days. I will tell
Oh.
you the truth. Yes. It's funny because earlier this week I was just talking to Omar post a boxing sauna session, everything testosterone exploding, you're feeling good. And I was telling him, you know what, Omar, I don't get sick anymore. It's just
Oh.
that I quoted that. Yeah, I quoted that earlier in the week. So I was humbled come the end of the week and I think some sort of food poisoning or stomach bug of some sort. So I won't give you I won't give you the details, but there are some visceral things that have occurred the past couple of nights in the bathroom
Oh,
and on
shit.
my bed sheets. So
Oh my goodness.
I'm on the come up. I'm on the come up. So eating my little kind of like rice spaghetti diet is very
Yeah, yeah,
simple
yeah.
thing to get my stomach back running. Um, but it has been quite difficult because I haven't been sick for a while, and I've had to like dial back on all the like kind of routines and just be like, let's take it easy, let's take it easy. Which is
That's
funny enough
hard,
is
isn't it?
it is very difficult. It's something that like very difficult. And I've been telling myself that I've been kind of waiting for this moment that it's like, when am I gonna be forced to like take a break? Like either I'm gonna get injured or like the body's gonna like, get sick. So you're waiting for this moment. Obviously when it comes, everything that you said previously just goes out the window and you're just like sitting there dying, absolutely just on the bed, just being
You
used
had
by the
an
sickness.
inkling or you had a suspicion something was coming. It was either you're gonna get injured, you're gonna get sick, or did I misunderstand that?
It wasn't a suspicion. It's more of a like, it's gonna come eventually. And because we've been riding such a high roller coaster routine and like good vibes, frankly,
Hmm.
it's around the corner. So I was like, I wonder how Isak like the previous Isak was like, I wonder how he's gonna react when this thing goes down. And it's gone
I know
down.
all too well. I know
Yeah.
all too well. Right here, right next to my computer. I picked this up on Friday morning after having a hard time sleeping because of my back pain from pickup basketball. So I pinched a nerve. I'm going through it right now. And so this weekend, I have just been trying to just do walks, but I still feel my back. I just like it's a weird feeling, and it's just painful when I do interesting, like random movements, or even sometimes when I breathe. So
No.
yeah,
Is
it
it
was
a
just kind of very similar though. Like was doing a ton of stuff, very active, doing a bunch, working out, playing basketball in the park, and then bang. Now I can't do anything. I can't work out. I can't go play basketball. I can't run. I'm recovering. We're both recovering right now.
we're both recovering. Is it a lower back or upper back?
Upper back. So me and my
Upper back.
coworkers, yeah, we've been talking about playing basketball for a while all together because we all like two of us played in a park. It's a Denver Central Park. It's called Washington Park. So two of us played. The guy from U of I, me
Okay.
and him, we play together. And then there was two other guys who play at a gym, and they had some guest passes. So they're like, "Oh, you guys should come and play at the gym." And we always have runs on Monday and Thursday, so we went on
Oh,
Thursday. And I was starting to heat up a little bit, nothing crazy, nothing crazy. I started to, start putting buckets up, playing. One of the guys played community college basketball, so he's, that's the guy who's going to be facilitating. He's the captain.
okay.
But yeah, midway through the first, even early in the first game, I couldn't even tell you what it was. I was just running and I was like, oh, ooh, my upper back, I can't really even. I can't do anything too crazy right now because it's every like second step I'm feeling a sharp pain in my upper back. So
Mm,
yeah, no, I'm dealing with that. I'm probably like 40% recovered.
40%.
40, 50, 40, 50.
It's nice to give a
Would you say?
percentage
Where are
to
you
it.
on the recovery?
I would say 65. I think the worst is past. I think the worst is past, which is good. So
Yeah.
over the halfway. Are you don't feel like the worst has passed?
I could be, yeah, the worst is definitely passed. So maybe I am, if that means I'm over the halfway point,
Okay.
then maybe I'm over the halfway point. Was able to I haven't taken this since Friday night. So it's now Sunday morning and I'm moving on. I'm actually moving on to something else, which is
Cool.
kind of pseudoscience like. Have you heard of this? Seems right up your alley. I feel like you're into the more Eastern medicine, right? Yes, exactly. Exactly. Oil of oregano.
Oh, I have used yeah, I've used, I've used them before. I've used them before.
Is that right? I
It
heard
is,
that's right up your alley.
dude, that thing is strong.
I'm drinking it right now.
A couple of drops. Yeah, I have
Six
used it.
shots. Huh?
It's like it makes you, yeah, it makes you
Yeah,
wince. Like it's not a game. That thing is like it's really
it's
crazy.
strong.
It's strong.
I heard it can burn your throat if you just have it straight up.
I've tried like putting it on my tongue
Oh,
um
really?
a couple of times. Yeah, I wouldn't. No. With
Yeah.
water, you were doing the correct procedure, I think.
So
With
wait,
all
how did
the
you hear about it, and what were you using it for?
I honestly think it might have been one of those. I think it might have been like a TikTok chat GPT, like quick fix, quick hack for what I'm trying to think. I think it might have been general immune system boost, like literally general. There was a period of
Oh,
time I used to get quite sick pretty often. So I think this was a couple of years ago during the Chicago winters where I think I would just like take a few drops here and then. But interesting. Where did you hear about
I heard about it from Mary, my girlfriend. She had raving reviews, and her coworkers too. Basically, I've been congested, and I'm listening back to the podcast. You can kind of hear it. I have to cough and clear my throat a little bit, and I've just noticed that, and it's been for 8 months. uh, Off and on, waking up, having to sort of blow my nose, being a little congested. Sometimes I mouth breathe because I'm congested, and then I wake up with a little bit of a sore throat sometimes. It's not all the time, but yeah, I could just tell I haven't been 100%. It's like 99%. You feel great, you can do everything, but you think just like I'm a little bit off.
it? Hear you.
So yeah, I looked it up. There wasn't a bunch of science behind it, but at the end of the day, I was like, this is oregano oil, so I'm not too worried about it really having negative impacts on
Right.
me. There's no downside.
There's no downside. We'll
There's
try
no
it.
downside. So
We'll try
I'll
it.
give it a go. I'll give it a go. It's functional medicine, perhaps.
I also experienced quite a bit, not recently this year, so I won't jinx myself and say it's never gonna happen again. It probably will, but like this extended period of little something, a little nigga, a little sore throat, like
Mhm.
never really quite there. And I'll have to think about what works for me, but don't have anything right now.
Oh, you
But
don't
I
have anything.
but I don't I'm
What
trying to
what
think
are we
like
on its
hold on,
own?
you think. Okay, I do know. Essentially, in my case, it would when I think about it, it lines up pretty well with like the pre JP, post JP
Oh
life.
my gosh.
Yeah,
Oh
the
my
pre JP, post JP
gosh.
life. It does.
You were
It does.
grinding, man. You were grinding. And that's actually something that we talked a little bit about off air. And I wanted to talk to you about it on air. And I don't think I've gotten a pretty good overview, but maybe not all of the granularities that maybe we can get into about where are you and how did you end up where you are?
Yeah. I'm in Paris, in the beautiful city of Paris. I am living with a French family. Family of four, husband, wife. Actually, I don't even think they're married, but two kids, two twins, girls, 10 years old. About to turn 11 in a couple of days, actually. I need to figure out what to get them for their birthday. That's going to be something. Always tough because when the twins, like, I'm so consciously aware of the like competition between when I think about like me and my brother's past. I mean, every single thing that you give to one, like it has to be exactly the same portion size, food, gift, and whatever to the other touching thing, or they flip. Like they will flip. Anyway, so yeah, I moved to Paris at the beginning of the year, as you know, on a hunch basis that this is the place that was calling my name, that I felt like I needed to learn something about life
And so
here.
what? Because there's so many places in Europe, and you have a history of being in Italy. Your brother's in the UK. Why Paris?
Paris, the first, when I like backtrack and try to like connect the dots, looking back on it, Paris is the place that has such a like, one more thing. I'm gonna interrupt. I'm gonna cut this whole conversation. I'm gonna put it to the side, and I'm gonna say, looking back on the first conversation that we had, something that like I cannot stop doing is saying the word like. It's really incredible.
Yours what? Honestly, both of us say it, and I don't know. I didn't think it was super bad. Of course, we could improve, but it wasn't terrible.
It was awful for me. It was awful. I have to be honest. It was awful. I never knew. Like, I am so glad that I'm doing this because I never knew that I said it so much. And so now there are a couple other things. I want to talk about this after we continue this endeavor in terms of my life here in Paris, about our thoughts of what we thought when we first looked at
Mm,
the
yeah.
first episode of the No Downside podcast. Moving back, I chose Paris because the language. I wanted to learn French. I spoke a little bit of French because I studied in high school. My dad is Senegalese as well. We didn't speak French growing up, and he didn't speak it to us. But there is this big side of life, my family that lives in Senegal, that I've always felt this real inability to connect in a lot of ways. And through my travels in Europe this past summer, I was visiting a lot of Southern Europe where there's a lot of African communities, there's a lot of African influence in these cities that I ended up diving into conversation with lots of people from Africa in general, and a lot of the times West Africa, and a lot of the times like African can kind of smell when you're African, they just kind of know, like they just like you're not, yeah, you're definitely from, yeah, you know, which I guess what I'm trying to say is when I look back on it, there was something that was pulling me from my African side to come to Paris, learn the language. I love the city in general. I love the vibe. I love the people. I love the way of living. I like it. And aside from that, I have a very good friend that's here that Omar, who is
Mhm.
here. And so when I was thinking about my downside, I was like, okay, I can drop in here. I'm unemployed, so I have the freedom to do this. I have a European passport, so that makes things easier. I can, learn the language, try new culture, just kind of see what happens. Yeah, the goal is to really see what happens. And so I decided that the best way to really dive in deep with the culture, learn the language, and have a good amount of free time to really do what I want to do. I thought being an au pair is perfect. And for people who, don't really understand what an au pair is, for all the fans who are listening, of course, an au pair is essentially a babysitter. It's a fancy word for a babysitter who lives in house, in home of a person's home and takes care of the kids. And sometimes you have other miscellaneous activities and duties that you have to do. But overall, you are there to be a part of the family. You eat with them, you sleep in the same house as them, and you're part of the family. So starting beginning of March, so now it's been 2 months since I've joined the family. And man, it is an experience and a half.
Oh yeah.
It is not easy. It is not easy. It is very, very challenging. It's very the easiest way that I would describe it as is like you are put into an environment that you have zero control over, and your role in the family is also not clear and not identified because it can't really be identified. Yes, it's a job, but yes, you're acting as an older brother to the sisters. But yes, then you have to be the authoritative figure sometimes and have them follow rules that you didn't make in the first place because you're picking up rules from the parents and you're trying to impose them on them. Sometimes you have to step in and be the father because the father is working all the time and he's just not there. Sometimes you have to be the friend. So you're kind of like jigging between all these different hats. And the challenging part is that it backfires sometimes because the kids are very smart, being 11 years old, that they say, you know, it's your job. It's like it's your job to play basketball. Like for example, these past 2 days, I
Ooh.
wasn't fe- I wasn't feeling
Ooh.
I wasn't feeling very well, right? On Thursday and Friday. So I took them to the park as we do after school. But I was like, guys, I'm not playing today. Like I really am not feeling it. And they gave me a little bit of a hard time, whatever. But then there's so many kids in the park that they have a blast for a couple hours. You come back home and it's like, Mama, like to their mom, Isak didn't want to do this. Isak was doing this. Isak was not doing this.
No
Yeah.
way.
So they will rap. They will rap straight up,
How
straight
how
up.
does the mom, how do the parents take it when they do that?
And and it's funny. Here's where it's like they use the okay, Isak is a big brother sort of thing. They're like, but when we do this, it took like we're not allowed to do it, but then Isak can do it and it's okay, sort of situation. So it's like you're not gonna say anything to Isak, and she's like, okay, like that is enough, right? Like she at that point calms things down, and I mean the mom is like a powerhouse, right? She she kind of runs the household in a lot of ways, and so she'll tell me straight up, like there's so many times she's like he's like, you're not speaking enough English with the girls because also my goal is to they speak English and I speak English with them to help them improve their English. That's also part of why they have me in there. He's like, you're not speaking enough English with the girls. He's like, you left the fridge open again. The first 3 weeks, oh, it's so difficult. He's like, you left the door of the window open again. Like, it's like, and she'll tell me, I love the,
Oh,
yeah, it's tough. She'll give direct feedback, like, and she won't let it slip, which is you almost have to do when you're living with someone because you have to set those boundaries. But it is quite uncomfortable. It's like, right, right. And so overall, let's start with the downside. The downside is that you're always on edge. You're always slightly on edge because it's not your home.
yeah, you're not
It's
maybe fully comfortable.
you're not really fully comfortable, and it's only until June. You have a contract. The kids know you have a contract. They bring it up. It's like it's your job. Like I know you're getting paid to. Can you buy this candy? Like they know so much. They know so much, and you know, that's what's that's what's difficult about it. You also have to consider that maybe this is, a French family thing, maybe just general. When I think about I was speaking to my mom about this, and I was like, when I think about my family, it was probably the same growing up, but like you have a different perspective now. I mean, there is arguing. There is really not a moment of peace between the parents and the daughters, or the parents between themselves. There's blah, 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 bickering, arguing all the time about something. So half the time, I'm just, they're eating my food or just kind of trying to be in my own world in a lot of ways because there isn't anything that I can do
Yeah.
a lot of the times. There's been scenarios where like mom's out of town for a couple of days and like, the two girls start like boxing with my dad
Oh,
and like I have to like come in and like pick them up, bring them upstairs and like diffuse. So it's like
wait,
there's different
boxing
roles.
in front of their dad?
No, boxing, no, their dad.
And the dad's cool with it, or what? How does that work?
He's not cool with it. He's not cool with it. But I mean, they're 11 years old. It's like a 2v1 situation. They're tough. They are actually strong. They will and they do hurt. They do hurt.
Oh my
So
God.
so you have to diffuse situation. I love how I'm just saying the bad stuff because the good stuff is incredible. Like
Yeah.
the while I say this and at the same time I say that like we love each other like deeply. Like I'm talking about the girls. They love me a lot and I love them. They care about me like no other. And I think that's partly why they give me such a hard time because like there's been a bond created here. And so you're gonna get the good and you're gonna get the ugly.
Yeah. How
And
long did the bond take to be sort of created?
I would say the first month was the toughest. The first month was the toughest. Like you pick them up from school, it's like, girls, we gotta go home. Your mom has a snack ready for you. No, I want to go to the park. So I fully understand. I would want to do the same thing, but not today. Maybe we can go tomorrow. They look at each other, drop their backpacks on the ground, start walking towards the park. So I'm
Oh,
so I'm sitting there. I got my own bag. I got two backpacks, and I have to follow them. I can't just let them go. So I have to. They are now the leader. I have to follow them to the park, get
wow.
to the park, try to maneuver some sort of conversation solution to try to convince them to go back home. Don't know how long that's gonna take, right? Sometimes it takes an hour, sometimes it takes half hour. So the first month was like that. The first month was like that, pretty on a consistent basis. And yeah, and after a while, I kind of changed a little bit, and it got a little bit better. It's like, come on, it's like I'm not, no, like we're not doing it, you know.
Yeah.
So you get to also find your voice a little bit, and like, find out what works and find out.
Right. And you never been in this type of role before because you were a younger brother. You weren't an older brother.
I was not an older brother, and so I had all sorts of respect for the younger brother, and all sorts of respect for parents right now. Truly, OD, one of the hardest things I think ever. Like part of it starting a business, part of it like so difficult to be really social that shout out to all the parents. This has looking back, it's like one of those things where man, I really want to be a parent now, partly because it is so challenging and like there is no days off. No days off. Every day you gotta show up. I'm like, I'm gonna head out, take a break, I'll come. No,
Um,
every day, whether the last time was good, it wasn't. But yeah, could talk about it for a long time. But that's what's going on. And overall, I'm happy with it. I'm really happy with the fact that I feel that it's not easy and that I feel like I am learning a lot. although I might not even be conscious of all the little things that I am learning. But it's certainly an experience that I want to look back on and say like, oh man, thank God that I did that because wow, do I know how that operates? Or do I know how kids of this age work, or like the inner workings of parents, or like how when the parent is working at the time? Because realistically, like I know way too much information about a family. It's like dropping a fly in someone's home and I'm the fly. Like I know too much. I'm not supposed to know what time you get up and your schedule and what take. Like it's weird if you think about it. Of a random
Right.
family, it's weird. So super interesting. Yeah, super interesting.
So how long do you think you'll be doing this for?
So June is the end of the contract. The girls are already like, "Can you stay longer?" I'm like, listen, we'll see. We will
Have
see.
you haven't even brought it up, or the parents haven't brought it up?
No, no,
The end of
the
the
parents,
contract?
no, the parents haven't brought it up, so not even, yeah, it's not even a discussion. It's just something that I've talked about with the girls. But keeping it open, yeah, for my personal level, even though I don't even know if it's an option, right? But for me, in terms of when I think
Right.
about it, like we will see. We'll see. I think there's a very real chance that by June it's like, whew, like we did it, like and then I might be like, okay, fantastic, but like maybe I need my own space, or like you know,
Yeah.
maybe this was the experience, and we don't feel like we need to do it again. But it is going to be very difficult because by the time June comes, like the bond with the girls will be very, very different. So that's what I thought. So
Because you started in
heartbreak.
January?
I started at the beginning of March.
Oh, oh,
Started
so not that
Not
long.
not that long. It's gonna be by the end of June. It's gonna be 4 months, but not that long. No, that's what's nice about it. It's like 4 months. Hop in the family, hop out. You know?
Yeah, yeah, but it feels as if you have known them for probably much longer than just two
Yeah,
months. You're living with them.
yeah. So yeah, parenting, man. That's really the one thing that I've been thinking a lot about when it comes to this experience. Like
You want little Esox running around now?
I, I want them, but I want them, but man, do you need to have the time well to beat it? Like I really, really do be the guy who is working the 8 to 6:30, comes home to the kids. Like there's gotta be a different way. And I'll figure out a different way, right? But I think it's very difficult to be in that situation where it's like you're coming home at 6:30, you haven't seen the kids all day, 6:30 to 7, you haven't got any dinner, and then it's kind of it. It's hard. And I get it, that's completely normal, right? Nothing crazy. But
Yeah.
if I think about my ideal situation, um, I really find a way to have this study day time with the kids. So I guess yes, parenting. Yes, I want to be a parent. Very, very much so. But man, do I want to create my ideal world beforehand? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
I don't know what your thoughts are on that in terms of how stable, stability, do we want to call it the word? Would you like to be ideally before even considering? Or is that not even, you know, the the struggle of finding the stability while you are in the midst of having kids? Because
Yeah,
it's also
that's
part of the
another
journey.
good
So
point. I mean, my dad brought up that exact point because I kind of talked about wanting to be together. There's a little bit, I'm getting a little bit of background.
okay.
I don't know if are you at 100% already? Or are
What?
you at, because I know there were certain levels that you could go to cut out the background. Are you at
I
the max?
I am currently at the math table, but
Okay, no worries, no worries,
please
no worries.
proceed.
Yeah, no. So when I moved out here, I was talking to my dad and talking about the timeline of engagement with my girlfriend and getting married. And I said, there's no way we can get engaged or even married if we're not living in the same city. We're not living together. That it just doesn't really add up. It doesn't make sense to me. And he acknowledged it. He said, that makes sense. But at the same time, you can't really wait for everything to be perfect because from speaking from his own experience, he moved to the United States, right? Migrated to the United States. Him, my mom, they did long distance for a year while my mom was in Europe, right? Then she finally moved out here. My dad was driving taxi cabs. My mom wasn't working, and they had a kid. Then they had my sister. And then shortly after they had my brother, and I don't even know what the timeline was. My dad was having a hard time passing the pharmacy board test because, well, one, there was a language barrier a little bit. I mean, he was good enough at speaking English, but when you're taking a test, right, it's different. It's just a little bit more difficult. There's just a little bit of a challenge there. So they just made it work and they barely had anything. And looking back on it, they think, dang, I don't know how we did it, but there's so many people that just do it. You just make it happen. You just make it happen. So I kind of I like that philosophy of just making it work. Don't try to make it perfect because if you wait until it's perfect, you'll be waiting your whole life.
I think that is,
Yeah.
yeah, no. You're right. My dad also very similar experience, by the way, in terms of my parents. Migrated. My dad also worked taxi and Ubering for a long time. Yeah, interesting. And your parents met where exactly?
Amsterdam.
Your parents met. Okay. So your dad migrated from Nigeria to Amsterdam?
Nigeria to Amsterdam, but always the intention on going to the US. So even when he met my mom, he was already saying, "Hey, my plans, I'm just stopping here. I'm going to the US." You
Don't
know?
hold me back.
Yeah, exactly. He made it clear. And so he moved to the US. And what was also crazy, and I didn't learn this until the last couple of months, is my mom would visit and she would just be overwhelmed, right? Because my dad had all of his Nigerian friends. That's why he ended up in the Bay Area because that's where he knew there were Nigerians there that had come from Nigeria and they're sort of stationed out and posted up in the Bay Area. So in Oakland specifically. So he went there. My mom would visit and it would just be Nigerians. So it would just be Nigerians in the house and they'd be speaking Igbo or yeah, Igbo. And my mom didn't really speak that good of English and she didn't speak any Igbo. And so she just felt super overwhelmed. And she told me recently that she wasn't going to do it. She wasn't going to come to the US and she got pregnant with my sister. So, and I brought this up to my dad. He's like, I don't know if that's exactly how it went, but my mom said it. So there's definitely got to be some truth to it, which is pretty mind-boggling to think that she was sort of quasi forced to do that, to come to the US, and she would never move back to Belgium where she's from now.
It's crazy.
I know.
It's crazy how
It
it
is
works.
crazy. It is crazy. I think a lot of people now we're just waiting for everything to be perfect, waiting for our investments to hit a certain amount, waiting for our salaries to waiting for our titles to be manager, senior vice president or whatever. And it's just, it's probably unnecessary, but I get it. It's rational. I get it.
It is rational, and even when I hear myself say it, it's like, that is of as of April 27th, 2025. Like, in a couple weeks time, you meet the love of your life. 6 months later, that whole answer completely changes. So it's nice to have that blanket of comfort. I think that's why I say it. Other people say it, to have that blanket of comfort of having that word. But like deep inside, I think everyone knows it's like in 6 months' time, the whole game, the whole landscape is gonna be different. And
Yeah.
so whatever you said really goes out the window. And it's just like, what is happening next that is right in front of me, and see how things go from there.
Yeah, and I just thought about this. I've thought about this casually before, and I don't know if I'm fully sold on it, but there's some truth to this idea that you're always going to be worried about something. There's always going to be something occupying your mind, whether it's us working at JPM or you now with the girls or me now with my new situation. Right. And there's always a lot of time I would have this thought before a big event or something big in my life that I was a little bit anxious about. And I would want to get to that point, and my mindset would be, okay, right when I get to that point, it's going to be over and it's going to be so much better. There's going to be, yeah, there's going to be a weight lifted off my shoulders and it's going to be serene after that. But there's going to be something else. There's going to be something else that pops up. You're going to be occupied with something else. So I tried to shift the mindset to a not not so much as a let me just get past this and I'll be okay. As, not so much as that, more so there's always going to be something. So you just got to learn how to deal with it and calm. All right, so we got cut off. There were some technical,
So I'm not really sure what happened there.
yeah, technical difficulties. But where was I?
Intermission.
Little intermission.
Excuse me.
Um, no, I honestly
You
can't
were
even
mid flow.
remember exactly where I
You
was.
were mid flow.
I was definitely mid-flow. I was definitely mid-flow.
One one thing's for sure, you're definitely mid flow. You were talking about what though? Which one? Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. God, seriously. Come on. Um, you know what?
I'm crying. Holy shit. Oh my
I think I was too caught up on the less than a minute ago warning that like I really did kind of zone out too for like 20 seconds of the thing.
Oh God, no! I think I know it was somehow related to not wanting things to be perfect, but yeah, I mean, it's really easy to want to make things are all sort of in.
I love it. I love this trying to flow. Just trying to flow right back into it. So yeah.
Oh, this is
No, hold on.
hilarious! Oh my gosh,
Let's switch gears. Let's
let's
switch gears.
switch it. Let's
Let's
switch.
switch gears.
Oh my goodness! Holy shit!
I have something to ask you
Yeah, what's going on?
about a cool business venture that was a part of your life recently.
Oh yeah.
I still haven't heard the full rundown. I'd love to. give to get the overview of your experience of
Yeah,
this venture.
man. It was really exciting and then underwhelming at the end. So basically, me and my buddies, we wanted to start a business. We didn't know what to do. We had a couple brainstorming sessions. We had a couple sessions where we would brainstorm separately and then talk about the best ideas. And we landed on a sauce company. Not just a regular sauce, but a sauce infused with protein. So it was supposed to be a 12-ounce bottle protein sauce that had about 8 grams of 8 grams of protein. We were shooting for between 8 to 12 grams of protein per serving size. So that's 2 tablespoons. So yeah, man, we put a good amount of work into it. Right. So we got a food scientist. We hired a food scientist for a little bit. We were definitely diving in. We did some experiments just on ourselves and we all met up. We were all just two of us were in Southern California, one was in Northern California, but we definitely gave it a go. And
Wow.
yeah, we started up an LLC and we were really thinking that this could be something. And honestly, I do still think it could be something, but there were a lot of things going on in our lives, right? One, my move across the country, my job switched. There was one of us that also had a big career change, and two of us, myself included, me and one of the other guys, didn't actually look at the product as something that we would consume. I'm not someone who is yearning for a protein sauce. I'm just not that type of guy. And when we thought, okay, that's fine, but there is a market for it. And I do believe that now, I guess one of the takeaways was you got to have one of two things, but ideally you have both. The first is conviction in an idea. You have to have conviction that this could be successful. And I believe that we did have the conviction, but the second thing is the passion for the product or the service. One of us had the passion, two of us didn't. Two of us would never buy this product. I'm not yearning for more protein to the point where I want to get a sauce that has a little bit more protein for me to hit my protein goals. Now we sort of built this company off the philosophy that many scientists and MDs have. The most acclaimed is Peter Attia, who advocates for consuming at the minimum 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, which is a ton of protein, right? That is a very hard goal to achieve, but nevertheless, it is something that these really prominent MDs and scientists, some of them are advocating for, right? Peter Attia is probably one of the most famous MDs in the United States, medical doctors in the United States, if not the most famous. And so he's got a lot of, he does a lot of serious research. He's a Stanford MD, right? Very accomplished. I'm pretty sure he did his residency at Johns Hopkins and in the EU or in the IU, excuse me. So all that to say, it was backed by science. Right? That was sort of the impetus is we're going to be a company backed by science. We're going to be quoting these scientists. We're going to be quoting these MDs about the importance of hitting your protein goals. Whether you are someone who is trying to build muscle, like a gym rat, right? More protein. Whether you're someone who is older and is frail and really needs protein because it's hard to It's hard to maintain muscle mass once you get older. And or you're just someone who wants to stay healthy and hit that grams per protein goal or grams of protein goal per day. Right? You could be either of these three people, and this could be good for you to get more protein in your diet. Now, I believe that to be true if you are someone of the philosophy that you should get that grams per protein target, but I am not a full believer of that. So, and I don't strive to hit those goals. So ultimately, what led to the demise of the company was the lack of passion for the product in my eyes. Now, I do believe that you could probably gain passion if you're hitting checkpoints and it's sort of a self-fulfilling loop of passion if you see yourself progressing. And we were progressing, and so I think we were able to sort of sustain the passion. Oh, we got a cool idea. This could be something. Right? So there was some passion just inherently in that. But once we had a hiatus, we had a rough ending with our first food scientist or our only food scientist who just couldn't produce the type of product we were looking for. And he sent us multiple samples, and we were like, look, you're not making the progress we want to see. So we ultimately had to cut it off and end our relationship and go back to ground zero, which was we interviewed a bunch of different food scientists first, right? That was our first thing. Once we figured out our business plan, we had our timeline. We interviewed a bunch, and we finally got to this guy. We got to our first guy actually, and he gave it a go. He said he works. He's a food scientist. He works as a food scientist, and he was able to use his company's commercial equipment to do these one-off consulting projects that he does on the side. Now, he agreed, we signed a contract. He was doing our project, and whilst doing the project, one of his machines got messed up because of how much protein he put in it, and he said this is going to cost a bunch of money. I'm not going to keep going forward. So this was the needle in the haystack guy we found. He seemed so accomplished, and he seemed like he could be the one to bring us to the shelves at the grocery stores. But he gave up. He threw in the towel. He didn't want to talk again after. We were like, hey, can we hear a little bit more and find out a little bit more? And he didn't never respond to any of our emails. He was just done because he was probably pissed that he ruined some of his company's equipment and he had to deal with that. He just didn't want to deal with that. So then we found our number two. We went back to the drawing boards and got our number two. And that was the guy who just wasn't making the progress that we wanted to see. And we were giving him clear instructions on what we wanted, and he just couldn't get there. Just couldn't get there.
And when you say progress, are you talking about taste? Are you talking about specific percentage of supplements in there?
Taste, texture, couldn't get it down. All
Got it.
we did to get a prototype was we took a sauce that was on the shelf and we mixed it with the amount of protein that we wanted in 2 tablespoons. So we put 2 tablespoons into a bowl and put the amount of protein that we wanted in those 2 tablespoons into the bowl as well, mixed it up, tasted it, bang, money. Money. It tasted good. You couldn't tell that there was protein in there, even though there was a shit ton. However, when we tried to recreate this from scratch, it couldn't get there. He couldn't get there. And so I know it can be done. And me and my buddies, we think we'll eventually see it. It's been sort of an idea before Quest Protein did an April Fool's joke literally 27 days ago, basically saying that they created this and it ended up being an April Fool's joke. But you see in the comments, some people were like, I know this is April Fool's joke, but can you create this, please? There's definitely a market for it. Some companies probably don't see the market being big enough, but it was something that we thought was interesting. I do believe it'll eventually be on the shelves. It's again not going to be something I buy, So it's gonna be tough when I see that on the shelves, but it's just and then we did do some when we were doing our market research, we did see there was a pasta sauce company that has they put a bunch of protein in their pasta sauces. So the idea is not extremely novel.
This is incredible.
Yeah, it was a great
Give me,
experience. It was a great experience, and I know now if my next company, if I ever start another company, I want to be utterly passionate about it. I want it to be something that I would absolutely buy. Or, I mean, that would be ideal. That would be ideal. I would want to have the passion. Of course, if I reckon it's one of the most innovative things in the world and humanity needs it, I mean, of course, then I'd be passionate about it too. So I do really believe the passion needs to be there, especially because it's so hard. So hard. You don't have a boss telling you what to do. I mean, this is, you're not getting paid. You're throwing money into it. You're just leaking money. So, and it could last a really long time. And they say that I've heard from many people, if you're going to go start a company, go through the thought experiment of seeing yourself doing this 10 years from now. Would you want to do this for 10 years? Could you do this for 10 years? And for a product like protein sauce, no. I mean, it would have been difficult. And so I think the missing piece was the passion.
give me a rundown of the timeline of when the idea was born. You mentioned that it might have been born kind of a long time ago, but when the four of you really got together and were like, let's do this, to trying out the software at home, to even looking for the food scientist, to creating the business plan. What's the structure? How long was that process?
Okay, yeah. It was so we started brainstorming together in February, late February 2024. We started brainstorming. Then every subsequent week, we met up and we talked about what we were going to do. We probably figured out the idea mid-March. So it was quick. It was quick when we got the idea. Probably too quick. We probably just settled on the first good, easy idea, low barriers to entry idea. And we started our business plan probably the next week, did market research for a couple of weeks, and then then we went and then we started doing interviews for partners on who can develop a formula for us to go to a co-packer, manufacturer, and get this get this bottle and on shelves.
Explain that to me, because that I know nothing about.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't do anything amazing here, right? Because there was no business. I didn't make any. It's almost as if I wish I sold a company and was very successful to then be giving this advice or be giving sharing this knowledge. But it really wasn't much. Though you're right, you can learn a lot even from something as small as this. I mean, the whole process was about a year from start to finish, and so basically, when you go to when you go to a manufacturer, you need to know how your product is made from a manufacturer's lens. So they call it a formula. Basically, you're not just the types of ingredients and the process in which they make products is different than what you would do in your kitchen. So you can make it in the kitchen, but it might not be compatible with this manufacturer, with this high scale process that people have when they're doing commercialized products. So basically we had to figure out, okay, how can we what does our formula need to look like? Where are we going to source the ingredients? Are the manufacturers going to help us source the ingredients? Are we going to have to source them somewhere else? What are we able to put on the bottles? What's safe? Is this gonna make people sick? How do we know if this is gonna make people sick? I don't even know if this is gonna make people sick. You know, if you look up, you don't want to have protein in water for more than 24 hours or something, and there can be some crazy bacteria to grow. So what's the process? Oh, you need to heat it up to this certain amount, or it needs to be this acid level. And so we're learning this from our interviews. We're trying to see who's going to be good, but we're also trying to learn every interview from these food scientists because they none of them have done this, but they all have different experiments, and we're signing NDAs with the people who we are now like the second stage of interviews. We're signing NDAs because we don't want them to take this idea. Now I'm speaking about it publicly because I'm not doing it. Best of luck to any of you who go and try to do this. It's possible. Just you got to be either gym rat or I don't know, someone who's passionate about this. Anyway, yeah. So that's kind of the process. Is you just got to figure out what it looks like to have a manufacture your product as opposed to what it looks like in a kitchen. There's going to be overlap, of course, but the process is going to likely be a little bit different. You also can make it in your kitchen and sell it that way, but you have to get some things cleared by the government or by the state. I'm pretty sure they have to do some inspections in your kitchen and make sure it's up to standards. Yada 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 yada. Anyway, we closed the LLC before earlier this month before tax season because we would have been hit with an $850 tax penalty. That was it. That was the final straw. We're gonna be hit with an $850 tax penalty. Not tax penalty, just taxes to operate an operational yearly fee in California. And we hadn't talked in a little bit. We were kind of upset that our second food scientist failed and we gave up. Again, you gotta to have the relentlessness. You either, yeah, I do think it comes down to conviction, a ton of conviction. You know it's going to be successful, very successful, or you just love it. I just love doing this, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and both of those things go into the how badly do you want it sort of situation question. That's like when that stuff comes up, when the food scientist number two says, "No, I'm hands off." How badly do you want it? And conviction and passion go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So interesting,
Yeah, yeah, it
so
was
cool.
interesting. And I do I could see wanting to do it again and even just a different product. I don't know if it's going to be in the consumer packaged goods space, though I'm someone who I look at myself as a health advocate, Whole Foods. So I could be drawn to that. I really, really enjoy watching what this one company is doing, DeSoy, and the founder is a young woman who started up another health company or CPG company that's in the health food space. But DeSoy is a non-alcoholic beverage. It's a non-alcoholic aperitif, and so I follow her and I see her journey, and it's really cool. She's a CEO now. I don't believe she was the founder, but it's really cool to see these companies that are making products that I enjoy and I believe should be more popular and take over market share from a lot of the unhealthy brands and be successful. It's really cool seeing their journey, and I could see wanting to be a part of something like that in the future.
Okay. So even though you're talking about not necessarily from an entrepreneur standpoint, but more of a joining a company that has a mission that you support.
Yeah, either. But right now, I'm happy where I'm at. Happy where I'm at, doing some interesting things. Honestly, there is actually something interesting I'm doing right now that I would like to hear your thoughts on, which is
But
forecast. Sorry, go for it.
I'm trying to cut you off, but one last thing before we move on this same topic. So it sounds like my takeaway. from what you just said is think of the product that you're making. My takeaway is take the product that you're thinking about making, but think about right away how you can make that at scale. So even when you're in the kitchen doing the thing, in the back of your mind, it should be, okay, but how are we going to make hundreds of these or 200 of these? That's the portion we're talking about from the business standpoint. Is that kind of how you were thinking about it? Is that how people should think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. We were trying to fast track. I've heard of amazing stories of founders in the consumer packaged good space who are just experimenting a ton in their kitchen. And they're doing it over and over. Just in Boulder, one of the most famous, the pretty sure the most famous almond butter brand, which is what was it? What is that called? Do you know that almond butter brand?
No.
No. Okay. Well, they're called Justin's. Justin's is a really popular one. And they're made in Boulder. It was made in Boulder. The founder is from Boulder. He was just doing a bunch of different experiments in his kitchen. And he was trying a bunch until he was like, this one tastes really good. This almond butter. And then he went and figured out how to scale that after. But I'm pretty sure he might have started at just selling that at the farmer's market. Then he was just making it in his kitchen and selling it at the farmer's market. And then there is some very good takeaways. There's some very good practices that you can learn from that process of I'm making this, I'm the specialist. I'm not going to any food scientist to try to create what I want because I made it from scratch. I know everything about it. And then figuring out how to scale after that, we sort of took the approach of, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We know we're not food scientists by trade. We believe other people can make flavors that are better than ours. So we just want to present them with exactly what we want. And we thought it would be easier. I mean, it's still a little frustrating to me because it's so doable in my eyes. And we probably put a little bit too much faith in these food scientists when we could have just, and what we were going to do next. So if anyone's listening and wants to try it, we were going to go to manufacturers who manufacture sauces, sort of white label sauces, and just do exactly what we did when we were in our kitchen, which is just mix them. And then we were going to go get them tested by these certain companies that will test what is in your product, how much bacteria has grown, what's going to be the shelf stability of this, how long will it last, what will be the expiration date, and then we were going to go from there. And we were just going to use these companies that are already making a bunch of sauce. We were just going to do maybe get a high performing mixer or whatever it may be, and then start selling them that way. But yeah, thinking about scalability, you're gonna have to think about it eventually, whether you want it to be while you're doing the product development or after. I can't really say what's better because I'm not really in the position to give advice like that. I don't think.
Where did you find the food tech? Where did you find them?
Yeah, we found the food scientist. I mean, we looked it up on Google. What's a good place to find food scientists, where to find food scientists, and we found this LinkedIn-esque site for different types of food scientists and reached out to a lot of people. Upwork.
Upwork. I know Upwork. Okay.
Okay, yeah, so I'm pretty sure you can use, it's not just for food scientists. You can do a bunch of stuff.
Right. For any
Yeah.
kind of freelance, any business that you're providing, essentially.
So we found a bunch via Upwork and went down that right. And honestly, we put too much. Some of us had, amongst the three of us, we had differing opinions. And it's good because you think about a lot of different things. But some of us wanted to just move fast. Some of us wanted to be very very intentional about how we want to proceed, do a lot of research before we make decisions. I was of the opinion, let's just go. Let's just do it. Let's just move. Like,
Okay.
who cares? Who cares? If we're wrong, we'll iterate. We'll keep moving. Let's just foot on the gas. But which, it's just a one philosophy. But we put too much in the hands of the food scientist. And if the food scientist was good, we were going to keep moving. If they were bad, we were going to stop. And that's what happened. They were bad and we stopped. But I know if the food scientist was as good as we hoped, we would still be working on this right now. I bet because we would have had a product and we wouldn't have had those hardships. But again, there could have been something else that popped up, and because the passion wasn't there, the hardships were going to hold us back.
What was the hardest thing about working with your friends, with three of your friends?
I'd say just keeping the spark, keeping them motivated. And I I I feel as if and it's collective, right? It's not as if I had all the motivation and they didn't have any. That's definitely not the case. Though sometimes it felt as if I had more motivation than them. But I know if I still had the motivation, we would still be doing this because they would just need a little bit of a push. Honestly, any of us might have just needed a little bit of a push, but the motivation just wasn't there. And that's what ultimately was was what stopped us.
Are you saying that you were essentially the primary motivator in a way that when your motivation kind of takes to the wayside, then everyone in a way drop off the wagon or
Sometimes,
sometimes?
and because I know that there were times where there would be one of them who would be encouraging us to hop on a call. Let's get on call. We need to get on calls. We
Okay.
need to get on calls more regularly.
Okay.
And yeah, so it definitely wasn't just me, but yeah, maybe just collective motivation and keeping motivation high as a team. That was honestly the most difficult because if you got motivation, you're ready for anything. You just go, 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 go. And you have to, as an entrepreneur, I believe, as someone who's failed as an entrepreneur, right? I believe motivation is if you have that, you are going to be much more likely to be successful than someone who doesn't have the motivation. You got it. Because there's gonna be shit that pops up all the time. Random stuff. You're doing everything. We're sitting down talking with um a designer for the bottle. We had a design for the bottle. Yeah, really cool. It was actually really cool. She did a great job. And then you're flipping to think about, okay, what do we have? What does our financing look like? And we got a bank account set up. Oh, and then we have to set up the LLC, and we got to make sure we're we're working out of the right state, and we're setting up the right type of business, S corp, LLC, C corp. What do we want to do? Right? So just a bunch of stuff. If you have the motivation, you will have a much higher probability of success.
It makes me think about, do you know the science experiment of the rat who was in a tube going after the cheese? It's very broad, but I'm gonna just shout about it. It's so random. Okay, so rat inside of a tube. First first time experiment, they put a cheese at the front of the tube. They have a string attached to the rat's tail that measures of the amount, the force level of the pull of the rat. So they put the cheese in the front, first experiment, all right, rat runs, they measure that force. The second experiment, I think do you already know about this
No,
one or
no,
no?
no, no.
You're smiling. Okay. The second experiment is they put the smell of a cat at the back of the rat, still with the cheese in the front, but now with the fear of the cat in the back, the mouse, what happens? The mouse pulls much, much, much harder towards the cheese, right? And
Fascinating.
so like, right, so the cheese is the thing that you want. The cheese is, this company, this brand that you're building. And the cat is kind of that fear level, which can sometimes act as a great motivator at times. And so it can be just the fear of not getting it done, like the fear of not having a plan B. Sometimes, people can really create successful things and be successful people by just having that fear of what if I don't? Then you have the fear of almost like you're dying, like of death from that fear just drives you enough to go get that thing done. So I think a lot about that actually, since I've heard
Did
that
you
recently
listen to that Naval, what Naval said on that Chris Williamson podcast?
was that Naval on the Chris Williamson podcast? It definitely, I've listened to a couple of Chris Williamson podcasts, so it's definitely from Chris Williamson, so it
No, no,
might have
no,
been
no.
exactly
It
that.
wasn't that was a different experiment that you mentioned,
Okay,
which is great. But it also underscores the same kind of idea why he thinks some of the people that are most successful are the most successful, and it's because they're not afraid to go all in. And if they have to restart from nothing, they will. And so kind of the similar idea of being going all in.
being all in, like there's no plan B,
Like there's no plan B.
as if there's no plan B.
Granted, I don't know how. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's not
So
exactly
in this
like
case,
being afraid. Well, yeah, because you're afraid of failure. Then
you're
you're
afraid of
once you're all in, you're
you're
afraid.
once you're exactly you are
Where,
afraid.
where'd you hear that? Where'd you hear that
It
experiment?
was it was Chris Williams. Do you know Alex Hermosi?
Yeah,
Yeah, I like him a lot.
you
By the way, I like
do.
that guy. I do, I do, I do, I do.
I
I know he
wouldn't
gets a
peg
lot of
you
hate.
for a big Alex Hormozy fan.
No, me neither, frankly. But I think he's a truth
Like
teller.
Paris Coffee Shop. I
It's
mean, with the blazer or the wool blazer, I would
so
not
true.
pick you to be an Alex or Mosey fan. I feel like you'd be doing like door-to-door sales or something here in the States or in New
That's
York or
actually
something. I don't
so
know.
true.
Banging phones, like that's what I think of Alex or Mosey. Wow, his reach is
Um,
just vast.
he's reaching Parisians out here, man, at a little eco-friendly coffee shop. No, but I do really like him. But I think it was that, and I think Chris had mentioned that it was the experiment that Jordan Peterson talks about pretty often. But interesting. So I think it's like keeping in mind of like what is that fear driver? And then you can really ask yourself, what is it a healthy fear? Like the fear could be like, if I don't do this, like I'm not good enough. Like a lot of people have that kind of like fear driving them back. And I think what Alex and Chris were discussing is like, is that so bad? Because that fear can get you to where you need to go a lot of the times, right? And then the question becomes, did you really need it to get to that place? Which is a different discussion. But having that sort of that cat in the back is interesting. It is very interesting.
It is very interesting. I believe it can be a good motivator, or I believe it can be a motivator. Do I believe that it's good? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if progressing based on fear of certain things is a good thing fundamentally. But perhaps it is, and perhaps that's just human nature. I have no idea.
Perhaps it's just human nature. And it's also right, you can't, you know, part of the experience is like the cheese is still there. The cheese is still like a big lever of force. Like what you want is still there, but that sort of when we think about fear is like it's not something that can be eliminated ever from our
Yeah, I
lives in
can't.
a lot of ways. It can't. So you might as well, in a lot of ways, it's like, all right, if you use the fear, then it's the cat, then you're using the smell of the cat behind you. A lot of the times, right, we allow the fear to not even go get the cheese that's over there,
So how do you
right?
coincide that philosophy with enjoy the journey because the journey is all we have? So enjoying whilst being motivated by fear is something that's hard for me to coincide or hard for me to think about in tandem.
I think it would primarily have to do with restructuring the relationship that you have with the fear itself that resets every day, right? As part of the journey that resets every day, that you can get more comfortable with it. And I think it's just that is the process that people will find along the journey as they're going through it. But I don't think you get there right away. But I think
Yeah, because if you get there, are you gonna is the motivation gonna slow down?
you can, if you get the cheese,
No, not if you get the cheese, but if you get to the point where you're more comfortable with that fear, is the motivation also going to subside a little bit?
I see what you mean. I see it. This is where we got 1 minute left, which
I
blows
know.
because
Can you guys get a cliffhanger
this
for next time?
is actually a conversation I have been thinking about. Like at some point, Odia, I'm going to want to say like, let's just do it every week. Like I already know that's gonna happen, and it's gonna happen. So I'm just giving you a little front warning of that statement, which will come out of my mouth at some point.
Yeah,
Because as the week goes on, it's just like, oh man, that's so much fun. As you can see, like even in an hour and 40, we can really only get through like four topics,
which is crazy.
which is
Also,
crazy.
I don't know if I've laughed that hard in years. That was
Okay,
crazy.
good. I can't wait to watch that match because for a second, like I look up and your face is like actually about to explode.
Oh my gosh. All right, y'all.
Always a good time.
Always
Always a good
phenomenal.
time.